Welcome to the Two Beans in a Pod. Today we are opening the pages of what is already being called the most essential memoir of 2025.
That's right. It's called Careless People, a story of where I used to work by Sarah Wynn-Williams.
And this is, well, it's so much more than a standard corporate tell-all. It's a really stunning deep dive into the internal mechanisms of Facebook's global policy team.
Exactly. Right during its most explosive, world-changing growth period, which kicks off around 2011.
The title itself, Careless People, it's just so striking. It's pulled from The Great Gatsby, right?
Yeah, the famous F. Scott Fitzgerald quote about Tom and Daisy. They were careless people. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money.
Where their vast carelessness, it just sets the perfect tone.
It really does. And that's our mission today. We're going to track the journey of Sarah Wynn-Williams, a New Zealand diplomat trained in human rights and international law, as she enters this chaotic orbit of Silicon Valley.
And we're going to try to understand what she discovered about power, about personality, and unchecked profit.
And how quickly that combination leads to, vast carelessness.
We'll get into how this desire for global impact drove her in, and then how these profound failures of really human decency drove her out.
It's a study in extremes. You have the polished, very meticulous world of international diplomacy just colliding head-on with the frenetic break-things culture of a startup.
So to really get why she was so driven to make a real impact, we have to start with her origin story. There's this incredible moment from her childhood in New Zealand.
It's a moment that you can see defines her entire identity, survival.
Yeah.
At just 13, she was attacked by a shark.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She says it felt like being hit by a knife attached to a freight train, and she focuses not just on the pain, but on this chilling realization that she might actually drown.
And from that, she develops this incredible resilience.
Completely. She learns to tough things out. There's even this dark family joke that followed her hospitalization. Mind over matter. Stop that hyperventilating.
And that survival instinct, that push to overcome, that's what leads her to the world stage, to the UN.
Initially, yes. Human rights law, the UN. But she gets disillusioned very, very quickly. She finds that the whole bureaucratic system is just incapable of making the kind of change she wants to see.
The charmless Warren, I think, is how she describes the UN headquarters.
That's the one. She realizes all her energy is just being spent arguing over total minutia. She talks about this one session where dozens of expert lawyers are debating whether to put a semicolon or a comma in the annual Law of the Sea report.
A semicolon, that sounds frustrating, but what was the actual turning point, the thing that made her think this whole system is broken?
It came when this revered, aging Argentinian diplomat suggested, completely seriously, that the movie Finding Nemo,
The Disney movie,
that Finding Nemo had done more to protect the world's oceans in the last decade than any of their reports. And for her, that was it. She knew she had to find a more practical political tool.
And that tool, she thought, was Facebook. But getting in the door was not easy. She was pitching a job that didn't even exist to Marne, Sheryl Sandberg's #2.
And Marne was, by all accounts, brutally skeptical. Sarah had to do what she calls diplomatic stalking. Tracking down her home phone number, her address.
And she finally gets a meeting through a mutual friend.
Right, Ed Luce. But Marne just completely shoots her down, dismantles her entire pitch to be a Facebook diplomat.
Yeah, Marne said they only needed people focused on U.S. regulation.
Exactly. This idea of a diplomat from New Zealand who cared about global human rights, it was just totally foreign to them. She was dismissed.
So what changed Marne's mind? It had to be something powerful, something personal.
It was a crisis back home. The devastating 2011 Christchurch earthquake. Her hometown.
Oh, wow.
And she became obsessed, using Facebook to try and find news about her sister Ruthie. She watched the whole aftermath unfold on the platform, and she saw it become this vital lifeline.
Coordinating supplies, sharing information.
Real-time data on liquefaction, connecting communities when all the official systems had just completely failed.
It wasn't an abstract policy idea anymore.
Not at all. It was literally saving lives. She realized Facebook was a practical political tool, and that raw personal belief just poured out when she called Marne again. And Marne finally saw it. She saw Facebook through her eyes and hired her.
But with that amazing caveat, I'm still not even sure this is a job.
I love that line.
So she lands in Silicon Valley. Exposed pipes, fake graffiti, Nerf guns, move fast and break things everywhere. What was the defining feature of that new world?
I think it was just the palpable contrast in wealth and this casual contempt for anyone outside the inner circle. She talks about the luxury, but also this incredibly aggressive work culture.
There's that story about the designer heels, right?
Yeah, early on, Marne's assistant just tells her flat out, you'll never be able to afford a pair of her shoes.
Ouch, what a welcome.
A painful lesson in the hierarchy. And then you have the pace set by leaders like Marne, who apparently lived on 4 hours of sleep like 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. and just expected that same 24/7 availability from everyone.
And that careless people theme, it becomes obvious right away when they interact with, traditional power structures, like the visit from the New Zealand Prime Minister.
Right, John Key. Mark Zuckerberg's total lack of interest is just striking. When the Prime Minister approaches him, Zuckerberg physically jumps back to avoid shaking his hand.
Just a total disdain for the formal process she was trying to build.
But Key, he's a politician. He seizes the moment, grabs Mark's hand anyway, gets the photo op. But the message was clear. External rules meant nothing. What mattered was the internal power network, the friends of Cheryl.
So if diplomacy was on the back burner, the real core of the company was growth. Pure, relentless growth embodied by Javi Olivan's team.
Oh, absolutely. Javi's team was the capitalist engine. They embodied growth at all costs. They played fast and loose to conquer new user frontiers. And Sarah makes this fascinating connection to an old idea of American innovation.
The idea that it's better to risk a few lives, to drown a few people with a new invention, because something better is always right around the corner.
Exactly. So that recklessness wasn't an accident. It was the philosophy.
We've really established this culture of carelessness, and before we dive into the severe human and diplomatic costs of that, let's just take a quick moment.
Good idea.
If you are finding these insights valuable and you want more deep dives like this, please do hit that like button and subscribe to Two Beans in a Pod. It really helps us out.
It does. Okay, so it's these global policy disasters that truly reveal the cost of that move fast and break things mantra.
Let's start with Germany. A total mess.
A complete disaster. It was a clash of cultures. You have to remember the context in Germany, their history with the Stasi and the Gestapo. There's a deep, deep fear of any kind of surveillance.
They saw Facebook as a potential surveillance tool.
Instinctively. And the office aesthetic didn't help one bit. The Germans walk in and see the exposed pipes, the under construction look.
Not a good look for them.
To them, it looked symbolically reckless and feckless. It showed a lack of seriousness.
And then Marne tries to connect with him and just makes it so much worse.
Oh, it was a train wreck. The meeting just freezes when she makes these incredibly tone-deaf remarks. She declares, "I'm Jewish," to the Germans, and then tries to equate free speech protections with Germans enjoying sharing topless photos online.
Wow. Just a complete failure of cultural awareness.
Crippled the whole effort right there.
But the greatest human cost, the really lethal example of carelessness that unfolds in Myanmar, this part of the book is just chilling.
It is, because it shows where Facebook's priorities really were. In Myanmar, you had millions of people for whom Facebook was the internet, their only source of information.
And the company was just completely unprepared for the hate speech, the violence.
The staffing disparity tells the whole story. It's terrifying. Sarah notes that Facebook had hundreds of staffers working on how to get into China, a market where they were banned, where they had 0 users.
Okay.
Meanwhile, for Myanmar, a country exploding with ethnic violence that was being organized on the platform, they had one. One single remote Burmese-speaking contractor handling all of the content moderation.
One person. They were flying blind into a genocide.
It says everything about where they put their resources. Future growth over present human safety.
And even their own business growth efforts were sometimes undermined by their own carelessness, like the Free Basics campaign in India.
This was a massive, multi-million-dollar campaign. Mark really admired the Street Fighter tactics of Uber, and he wanted to basically overwhelm the Indian regulator, TRAI.
So they pushed this pop-up to millions of users.
17 million users, prompting them to email the regulator in support of Free Basics. It was supposed to look like this huge groundswell of public support.
So how on earth did that fail?
It's almost comical, if it wasn't so absurd. The entire campaign failed because one low-ranking official at TRAI had simply opted out of all emails from Facebook.
You're kidding me.
A single email filter. It killed a multi-million-dollar effort. A complete failure of their own technology.
That's a perfect illustration of the whole problem. Now, Sarah's own commitment gets tested relentlessly. She talks about sending talking points while she's literally in labor with her first child.
The pressure to not leave before you leave, it tells you everything about the toxic environment. But the final straw, the moment she realizes the carelessness is a profound failure of human decency, comes when a colleague is arrested in Brazil.
Right, their policy executive, Diego, was jailed over a WhatsApp data dispute.
Yes. And with Diego in a Brazilian jail, what was Mark Zuckerberg's first priority? It wasn't getting him lawyers or getting him out. It was writing a heartwarming Facebook post about the crisis.
And she says he saw it as a great Facebook post opportunity before just going to dinner.
He did, but that's not the worst part.
How did the post jeopardize the case?
It was a legal disaster. In the post, Mark publicly admitted that Facebook and WhatsApp were the same company for data purposes, the very thing his own lawyers were fighting tooth and nail in court to deny.
He threw his own employee under the bus for a PR moment.
That's what she realized. In Mark's world, people were just disposable characters in his story.
And that's when she knew she had to leave. But the company sort of forced her hand after she tried to report internal harassment.
She reported really inappropriate behavior from her boss, Joel Kaplan, who was a hugely powerful executive, mandatory work during maternity leave, crude comments, that sort of thing. She went to HR.
And the investigation didn't quite go as planned.
Not at all. The investigation immediately switched focus to investigating her. She was convinced to kill her own complaint in exchange for a promise that the harassment would stop.
And then she was fired soon after.
Realizing, in her devastating words, that she wasn't silent enough.
Which is what ultimately led her to become a whistleblower to the SEC, to finally expose how it all really worked.
And this deep dive into careless people, it just reveals this corporate system where the powerful are so insulated by wealth and hierarchy that they're shielded from the consequences of their own actions.
She writes about how their youthful naivete just evolved into something darker, that they had lost touch with whatever fundamental human decency they might have started with.
The final point she makes is so powerful. She realized that putting Mark on the world stage, introducing him to global leaders, had the exact opposite effect she intended.
Instead of learning responsibility.
He learned that because of his scale, his power, he could afford to give less of a damn. That is the ultimate definition of carelessness. And it's a devastating insight for you, the listener, to carry with you as you use these platforms that shape so much of your life.
If you enjoy this in-depth look at careless people, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe. Host, speaker, expert, speaker shared. Thank you for listening to Two Beans in a Pod. Please order the book from the link below.